The first time I realized something was wrong, I was standing in my kitchen watching a woman in a beige blazer photograph my backyard through the slats of my fence. She didn't knock, she didn't call, she just documented my life like it was already evidence. Her name was Marlene Whitaker, though no one called her that. Around the neighborhood, she was just Karen, HOA board vice president, self-appointed sheriff of grass height, trash can angles, and the moral decay of other people's property. She wore authority like a perfume, too much, cloying, impossible to ignore. I'd moved into the subdivision 6 months earlier. Quiet cul-de-sac, mature trees, the kind of place where people waved but didn't ask questions. Exactly what I needed after 12 years in federal courtrooms where every word carried weight. I followed the rules, paid the dues, read the bylaws, twice. Karen noticed anyway. First came the letters, friendly reminders, printed on HOA letterhead but written with the sharpness of a blade. My grass was half an inch over regulation. My trash bins were visible from the street for 12 minutes past the approved window. A wind chime on my porch wasn't listed on the approved decor appendix. I corrected everything, I always do. That didn't slow her down, it escalated her. Soon she was driving by my house twice a day, parking across the street, sitting there with her engine running, phone angled just enough that I could see the camera lens glint in the sun. I never waved, never reacted. I let her collect nothing. Silence is a language, documentation is a weapon. I installed cameras, not because I was afraid, but because patterns matter, dates matter. Angles matter, especially when someone starts behaving like they're above the rules they enforce. Karen started inspections. That's what she called them. Walk-bys that became walk-ups. Walk-ups that became lingering pauses at my fence. Once I found a footprint in my mulch bed on the far side of the yard. Another time the latch on my side gate was unhooked. I filed nothing, said nothing. I wrote everything down. People often ask what federal prosecutors look like in real life. They expect sharp suits and raised voices. What they don't expect is patience, the kind that sits quietly and waits for someone to make a mistake big enough to matter. Karen mistook my calm for compliance, or fear. She started issuing fines, not warnings, fines, for violations that didn't exist. Unapproved backyard modifications, potential safety hazards not visible from public areas. That last one was interesting. I appealed through the proper channels, submitted photographs, measurements, copies of the bylaws with highlighted sections. The board upheld the fines anyway. Karen chaired the meeting, smiled the whole time. I could feel it then, the tightening, the sense that this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about control, about entering a space that wasn't hers and daring someone to stop her. I let her think she was winning. If you're watching this from an HOA neighborhood, I want to know, drop in the comments where you're watching from and whether you've ever dealt with someone like this. Because the real damage never starts with a confrontation. It starts with someone convincing themselves they're untouchable. By the end of that month, Karen stopped sending letters. That's when I knew something worse was coming. The calm arrived like a held breath. Karen waved one afternoon. Actually waved. Smiled like we were neighbors instead of adversaries. 2 days later, an email came from the HOA. Routine compliance review complete. No further action at this time. No fines, no threats, no paper trail. Just quiet. She started asking questions through other people, casual things. Did I travel often? Was anyone else living with me? Did I have pets? One neighbor mentioned Karen was concerned about safety issues related to my backyard shed. The shed had been there when I bought the house, fully permitted, inspected, documented. I checked my cameras more often. Nothing unusual, no gate openings, no trespass alerts. Until the night my phone woke me at 2:17 a.m. Smoke alarms, exterior camera motion, heat spike. By the time I got outside, flames were licking the back corner of my house, roaring up the side of the shed like it had been waiting for permission. The fire moved fast, too fast. Dry wood, stored equipment, a gas-powered generator I kept locked and unused. I remember the sound more than the sight. A low, violent whoosh, the kind that steals oxygen from your lungs and replaces it with panic. I remember yelling my dog's name. He didn't make it. The fire department contained it, but not before the shed collapsed and half my backyard turned into blackened ruin. The fence was gone. The garden I'd spent months restoring was ash. My house was uninhabitable from smoke damage alone. I stood in the street in borrowed shoes, watching steam rise from what used to be my quiet refuge. Karen showed up at dawn. She stood behind the tape, hands folded, face tight with something that almost looked like concern. Almost. "I told the board that shed was a hazard," she said softly. "These things happen." That was the moment grief turned into something sharper. The investigators said it looked like an electrical malfunction. The generator hadn't been connected to anything. That didn't matter to them, at least not yet. What mattered was that my cameras had been disabled for exactly 11 minutes the night of the fire. A clean cut to the power line feeding the backyard junction box. Someone who knew where to look. Someone who'd been there before. I didn't accuse anyone. I buried my dog. I moved into a hotel. I requested copies of every HOA communication, maintenance record, and inspection report from the last year. And I waited. Federal investigations don't start with anger. They start with timelines. I rebuilt the night minute by minute. Power interruption at 2:06 a.m., camera outage at 2:06:14, motion detected again at 2:17, fire visible. The cut on the line was precise. Tool marks matched commercial-grade shears. Then the footage from my neighbor's camera across the alley. A figure entering my yard through the HOA-maintained access gate. Beige blazer, reflective badge lanyard. Karen. Phone records placed her on site. HOA emails showed she'd scheduled a private safety inspection without notice, without authorization, and without consent. Texts recovered from her phone discussed forcing the issue and documenting violations firsthand. What she didn't know was that cutting a power line during an unauthorized entry isn't an HOA violation. It's a felony. The charges were clean: trespass, destruction of property, criminal negligence resulting in death, wire fraud related to falsified HOA reports, obstruction for deleting footage from HOA servers she didn't have authority to access. The fire was ruled preventable. The ignition source traced to the generator she'd moved during her inspection. The fuel line cracked when it fell. Vapors met heat. Her sentencing took 11 minutes. 32 months in federal prison. Permanent ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. Restitution totaling $487,000. That included structural repairs, landscaping, temporary housing, legal fees, and the assessed value of a trained service animal. The HOA dissolved under the weight of civil suits and insurance cancellations. Board members resigned, the management company folded. Karen cried once, quietly, when the judge read the line about abuse of authority. I moved back into my house a year later. The garden grew back slower. Some things don't return the way they were. Justice doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't rush. It waits, and it lasts. If you stayed with me through this story, like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think should happen when authority forgets its limits.